The hour has arrived. We do have a quorum. Pastor Brent McCleary, Legacy Church, will lead us in prayer, and then we'll do the pledge to the flag.
Let us pray. Father, we come in the name of Jesus, and we thank you for Wythe County. We thank you for all these supervisors, and we ask you for wisdom, Lord God, to do business, to grow this community, to keep this community, and to strengthen this community. We thank you, Father, for all you're doing in our lives in this area, Lord God, and continue to increase it and give us understanding to help it grow. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got one person on there. Citizens' time is now open. We have one person signed up. Ms. Myers?
It's actually Kim McKenzie.
Oh, excuse me.
You tricked us today, Ms. Myers.
You can think of something to say while she's here.
I'm
Yep.
Kim McKenzie at 196 Kimberlin Rural Retreat, and I'm here to talk about the Apex Center. I sent Mr. Vault email, I think it was the 16th of October, asking for information about the Apex Center, the financial, the events going on, how many people were attending, that type of thing. I didn't realize it was going to turn into a FOIA, or whatever, Freedom of Information Act thing, but I'm glad he did that. Mr. Bear sent me information that you all have that's in your package, and I got that a couple days ago, I guess last week. And yesterday evening, Christina Smith, your general manager at Apex Center, sent me an email telling me that if I wanted to get some information, that she'd be happy to send it. But in her email, she made a statement that the accountant was $210 an hour. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, well, you know, that's all right with me if you all want to pay that. But then when I said, go ahead and send me my information to my address. Then when I found out, I read it again, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to pay that $200 an hour fee to get this information, which I personally feel like it ought to be open to the public, and I think it should be through this board that we ought to at least be able to see the events that are going on, how much is coming in, and how much we're spending to get those events here. I'm not going to pay $210 an hour for an accountant to go through that information that should be available to all of us. I didn't mean to upset the apple cart, but I think that some of this stuff needs to be out front for everybody to see. We shouldn't have to pull punches to get information. Christina is a wonderful person. I mean, just by her email and watching what is on the videos and Facebook and things, she is special. And I think this thing can be something, but I think at the same time, you ought to be, I don't want to say honest, but I think you ought to be more transparent about what is going on up there and how much is, I know they're going to struggle in the beginning. I know they're going to do that. But I think, you know, when, as a citizen, when I see that $330,000, I believe, that we have to pay every year for 20 years, that means we have to at least do what, 100 events at $3,000 just to cover that a little more. And we've got expenditures. I know those lights aren't free. I know that water isn't free. And you start having horses up there that you start washing and things like that, where's this money going to come? That's what is worrying me. So that's all I have to say.
Does any board member want to address that?
Ms. McKenzie, that just anytime a citizen requests something from us, going back to the FOIA part, that's why I forwarded it to Mr. Barrett. It's, we're required by law. I agree with you. I think $210 is ridiculous for information that, you know, if they were self-sufficient and making money, then I can see that. But Right now, we're still funding them, so I agree with you. And I think that information should be readily available.
And just to be upfront, Mr. Ball did not know I was coming today. I didn't even know I was coming today. So.
I just got the email, actually, our email, we had some problems this weekend with the county email, and the email that you referenced, I just pulled out of my junk email folder about 4 minutes before you stood
From
up to speak.
Christina?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and then I sent her two, because the first one I sent and just said, yes, send me that information. And then when I read it again and thought, I'm not paying $210 an hour, because I don't know how long your accountant's gonna take to do that. And maybe I asked for too much information. But I do think that we need to have at least in the board's minutes or something, a monthly report of how much they're taking in and how much they're having to spend to have these events. That's,
Well,
You just want basic information.
well, I
right?
didn't
You
at
don't want
first,
every
no,
little
I didn't at
detail.
first, because I felt like there's a lot of things that the citizens need, and obviously, it takes a lot of manpower to get that information up, what I thought you all would have. I'm sorry, because I thought all of you would have that kind of information about what's going on up there, but obviously not. So now, I'll just settle for revenue and expenditures for everybody to see.
Mr. Bear, would you take the time to explain that the board doesn't operate the Apex Center? It's an authority, and what the difference in authority is, and yes, the information is coming, but
Yeah. This board has appointed a 7-member board.
Yes,
That
yes.
you, I think, understand oversees that. And then Ms. Smith is the general manager, operations manager for the facility out there. So, you know, that's, the information I provided is all the information I can provide you from the Board of Supervisors and those expenditures. The Apex Authority can provide you information, and what Ms. Smith has indicated. FOIA information is, you don't have to create information for it, so I'll work with the Apex Authority and see what type of reports they have that can be provided to you. It should not be a matter of having to create reports with the accountants for you, so we'll work and see if we can do that. And then that should just be minimal cost of any, and most of those things can be emailed or sent out without cost, and that's how we do those things here.
But do you, I mean, I guess my main point is, I think all citizens should have this information. I don't think each one of us should have to go through a FOIA to get this, and it really shocks me as a citizen to think that you all don't have this basic information about how much is coming in and how much is being spent to have these events.
part of that is a method that probably could be fixed, but are you aware of the 10% attendance tax?
Yes,
Well, that goes through the commissioner's office. There's a month delay before that goes out. And
Yes.
that method is like we collect all those other fringe taxes like food tax, and it's a mirror almost,
Yeah.
except the Apex is on a shorter turnaround in that they have to report within a month, and the food tax and the rooms tax has 3 months to report and pay theirs. Is that right?
How
Steve,
long, did you
he
say?
said 3 months.
they got a month and 3 months. It's quarterly for the restaurants and motels, isn't it?
They're receiving information monthly, or they're receiving amounts monthly on it. So
Okay.
it's delayed in coming in, but it's not quarterly.
And I agree with you. You don't know where you are until you know what your cost is.
Yeah.
The revenue you can work on, but you gotta know where your cost is.
Yeah.
And that information will be collected and forwarded to you. And what he just said, we can do it without the FOIA, but it will come from the authority and in some kind of a report that Mr. Bear and Christina can work out with the authority board. We have other authorities, as you're aware.
Yes,
The JIDA, the Water Authority, the Solid Waste Authority. We don't know what they're doing all the time because it's generally just a transaction this is what it costs and this is what it's brought in.
And the debt service you referenced, the 20-year payment, after, is it 3 years, the authority is responsible for making that payment? Is that correct?
They start, in 3 years, they start making half payment on it for 2 more years, and then on the 5th year, they start making full payment to us on it.
So if this thing goes under, are you putting it all on the authority? Does it not come back to the county? I mean, I don't get this, how, if we took out the loan, and then you're saying that 3 years it's gonna go on to the authority, are they responsible for that? And if they don't make it, where does this land and property go to? This is what I'm,
The way the lease is written, if the authority is unable to make the payments, then the board has the right to void the contract and the property, and all improvements revert back to the board of supervisors.
so it is your responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd just like to see all citizens get information, not just me. I really don't think one person has to keep coming up here asking for specific.
I agree with you, I completely
And I'm not
understand this.
trying to shake the, I mean, I'm putting light on the apple cart. I'm not trying to trip it over or
No,
anything.
I know you're not.
Yeah.
But citizens are confused by it, no matter if you're for it or not for it.
Yes,
It's still, there's a lot of confusion,
Yeah.
money-wise, and,
Yeah.
you know, so maybe we
It-
can come up with a way to make it more available, you know, something we're gonna have to look into.
yeah.
I'll assure you, we're gonna work on it and get something that's out there to the public. We've talked to the authority folks, and they're working on it. I think, Stephen, that's correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here that has anything to say at citizens' time? All right, hearing none. Payment of invoices.
I make a motion to pay the
Second.
Having a motion, and a second to pay the invoice, and the invoice you reviewed and want to pull that for consideration. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to pay the invoices. All in favor, say aye. Previous minutes, October the 8th.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from October 8th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any corrections by any board member? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Old business.
Do not have any items right now for old business, Chairman.
Okay. Treasury report, Ms. Gwynn, excuse me, for the Thrift Fair.
That's okay. You knew who I was, you're fine. Good morning. Feel like it's been months and months since I've been here, but it kind of has, so. We'll begin with the financial report this morning. The report that you received. Our general fund contains a balance of, this is as of September month end, $30,258,150, and the consolidated account contains a total balance of $51,512,914. Anyone have any questions on the financial report? You've probably noticed over the last few months, the overall balances have gone down as far as our general fund balance and balance in consolidated account. But generally through the summer, June, July, August, those are our slower months that we don't have a whole lot of revenue coming in, and that's primarily related to a lot of it can be tax collection because most everyone's paying from October to about May. We still get quite a bit of revenue through May as far as the somewhat voluntary payments, but that will start picking up very soon, which I'll address here momentarily. So, anything on the financial report?
Lori, how have you done on your warrant and debts? I know I've seen a lot of those come down the last couple of months, so I assume you've started going to court.
I have, I had court yesterday, and, yesterday was a little different because I did obtain a lot of, judgments yesterday for folks that hadn't paid, but for the most part, a lot of people are getting those and responding because they're saying they didn't know that they owed that tax. We've had fairly good success. Some have come in, either before the judgment was issued by the judge or after and set up payment plans. So working with a lot of people on that. Some follow through with keeping that and some don't. I do require, being provided with bank information and verification that the bank information I'm being given is correct. So, what I will start doing with those that fall delinquent, because I have in the contract that if payments are not made as they should be, it becomes null and void. I will start doing making bank liens. And, so trying to collect through that method. But, for the most part, everyone pretty well, keeps their agreement. There are a couple months, people will call and say, I can't come this month, can I pay next month? And I work with them as long as, I have honesty from people. I'll give a couple of chances. If you tell me you can't come, but you'll come next month, I'm okay with that. We note that on the account as long as you pick back up. I'm willing to work with anyone, because a lot of times it's hard to come up with that full amount at one time. So a little bit at a time's easier, but, I don't like being misled and giving bad information and knowing that they're not gonna follow through when they do it. So if that ends up being the case, then we're gonna move to, I guess, more extreme methods to try to get those collections in.
What is the interest when they set up those agreements?
The interest accumulates at the same rate it does anyway, which is a total of 10% annually.
It's a
So-
bunch better than we have was in the bank, isn't it?
Right, for sure. So, right now, bills that were due in, December of 2018 are approaching that full 10% interest over the past soon-to-be 12 months. But it accumulates at 10% annually. We are able to clean up a lot of, really old taxes, and when I say really old, I'm gonna classify those from 10 to 20 years. For folks that we have current judgments on. I have been working with people, to make some minor adjustments to those balances that are owed in an effort to try to get those paid. So, I try to work with folks as much as I can, but within limitations. So, but so far, I mean, the warts and debt have been pretty good. We did, go back to, several years on this last round that I just had yesterday, but, that'll all kind of cease at this point because of tax season being here. We'll pick back up in the spring on a lot of those, but, just, kind of trying everything we can to see what we can do, so. But overall, not bad.
Since we just talked about the Apex attendance tax, is it flowing better at getting from the commissioner to you? And
There hasn't been a lot of events that have been held that, people are buying tickets to get in. We had one come in, I think, a few weeks ago. I can't remember what the event was in September, but, once the commissioner's office receives that, we get the money in our office the same day. So there's no lag in time unless someone walks in with it at, 5 till 5, then it may carry over till the next day. But for the most part, everyone mails those type things in. So
I wasn't asking about the amounts, we just got the process working good.
yeah, so
Okay.
far it's good, yes. And it's working the same as the meals tax collection does. It comes into the commissioner's office and they transfer it over to us and we enter the payments in to the correct account. So,
Thank
yeah, it seems to be going good. Okay, well, moving on to more exciting things for us. As I mentioned, tax season has arrived. Tax bills were mailed yesterday from Lynchburg. We should start receiving those wonderful little items in the mail tomorrow. Me and the postal service people will be the most disliked folks in Wythe County as of tomorrow. Um, so,
I don't know if I'd go that far.
well, maybe a board member, or members or something, county administrator kind of gets a bad rap sometimes too. But with those bills, total assessed tax, which it covers real estate, personal property, mobile home, machine and tool, merchants capital. The total amount of tax was $23,057,000. Now, that's not the amount that billed out because we have to take into consideration the veterans credits, the age and income credits, any other abatements that were entered in prior to billing out. And I didn't run through all of those numbers before I came this morning, but motor license fees, in addition to that $23 million, billed out at $471,190. So total tax, if you want to classify everything as that point, was at $23,528,356 for 2019. So we will start collecting that. We've actually already started, had folks come in yesterday, decided they wanted to pay because the line was shorter than it would be the next time they came back after they got their bills. So we've already received a lot of 2019 payments, but we'll start getting busy tomorrow. But as always, my door is always open. Come down, watch, talk to the taxpayers. We'll be glad to have you. May even have to answer the phone while you're there. So staying along the lines of the taxes, as of mailing them out and folks receiving them tomorrow, that allows 6 weeks from tomorrow up to the December 5th due date to pay the taxes. My next statement, I really want to stress, I strongly urge you all to not extend the tax due date. We really need to get back to a December 5th because our citizens are getting used to having the end of December due date. And we need to reestablish that it's December 5th and this is the cutoff and not keep giving that extension. State code says that I have to mail bills within 14 days. People are getting 6 weeks. I do feel that that is sufficient time. We're about a week later of getting bills out than I had intended, but if from here on out, bills will probably be out the middle of October. If you're going to extend the due date again this year, then I ask that you consider changing your ordinance altogether on the tax due date and changing the due date from December 5th. If you're going to change from December 5th, I request you back it up to November the 20th. Go back. That ends up being, 10, 15 days, so about 2 weeks. I know that pushes everything to rush the commissioner's office and my office, but please do not consider extending the due date. We have to reestablish the December 5. In addition to all of that, the utility billing department is supposed to go live with their first billing with their program in mid-January. The last 2 years, we have still been processing mail payments in mid-January. So connecting in with the UB side of it, they have to upgrade to the new cashiering program. When they upgrade to the new cashiering program, that also affects the treasurer's office, which means we have to upgrade. Upgrades don't always go like they should in an overnight process. So if our office has to upgrade in the middle of us trying to finish working mail that we've been behind on, that adds a lot of other issues, and utility billing will have to get pushed out again. So one, I feel like there's ample time to pay the bills. Secondly, working with other departments, we really need to stay at that due date to keep from continuing to throw things off course, because in talking with Mr. Bayer, of course, utility billing was to go live prior to Mr. Souther's health issues or about that time, and it's been pushed back, and things need to keep occurring with this system, because believe me, I'm waiting on programs to come into my office that I can't get until other departments get their programs up and going. So that's kind of my personal take, and I will say that of my staff. It's been hard for us to have a Christmas break and enjoy it the last 2 years, and it would be nice to be able to go out the door and enjoy time with our families without being under the stress of, okay, we've got to go back 3 days after Christmas and deal with the due date and lines out the doors again. So I do ask that you not not extend the due date. I'm not sure if anybody's considered that, but that's my request. I don't have anything else on that, but if anyone has any questions on my request, I would gladly answer anything or give a further explanation if something did not make sense.
I don't have any questions, but with the bills already going out, I don't see any issues this year on my end.
And Lori, and I think you and the county and several of us did a really good job after last year, letting the citizens know that, you know, if they wanna get on a payment plan throughout the year, if that makes it,
Right.
there's never a good date to pay taxes.
No,
And
absolutely
the
not.
You know, the biggest complaint we get is, you know, it's before Christmas. Well, the problem is if you know, if you move to another date, it's before school starts.
Or summer vacation.
Or summer vacation. There's not a good time.
Yeah.
So last year, I think we done a really good job putting the different payment options out there. And if that's something, you know, citizens are interested in,
Right,
you know, some are, some aren't.
exactly.
So I agree with Ms. Lawson. You know, I guess 2 years that they were extended, it's, from my perspective, it's easy to point fingers at the switch over to
Yeah.
Tyler Munis
And it's all been a learning curve
yeah.
too, yeah.
so.
Yeah, the first year, was a definite need for an extension. Kind of adding to all of that, as long as the board as a whole would consider continuing, adopting the tax rate in May, as you did this past year, that is very helpful simply because the Commissioner of Revenue has 90 days from the date that the, tax rate is adopted by the board to complete the tax books. So if you adopt the rate at the end of May, the Commissioner's office, should be finished with the tax books by the end of September without requesting an extension from Department of Taxation. After they finish the books, there's work that we have to do, there's still work that they have to finish before the books officially come over to us. So this year, even with our, having to use the software folks instead of relying on, you know, our own IT person, we were still, it was about 2 weeks before the tax books were received officially by us because of other things that they have to do. So with that, that is also why I'm saying it will be about mid-September at least before tax bills will be coming out from here on out until we can continue to figure out where we can cut steps or make things faster, continue to figure out the whole process. But as long as a whole, you all as the board and the county administrators in support of approving the tax rate in May, that makes a big difference for both offices as well, and for our citizens in getting the bills out sooner. So, which this time was a very quick turnaround with the printers. I sent everything out on Thursday of last week, received my proofs back, and then they, I was hoping they would mail on Friday, and I pushed for that, but it didn't quite work out, but I'm okay with where we're at with it, so. But thank you all for that. I know we'll all get complaints about the due date, but there's never a good time. There's never a good time that AEP bill is due, or the cell phone bill, or the water bill, or any of that either, but we muddle through it, so. Anyone have anything else this morning?
I will just mention back to the original subject of the general fund balance and all that. Part of the changes in that right now that we're seeing are some of the actions that we took during budget time this year, and part of that, and over the last year. Part of that is we made a large payment of almost $600,000 towards the fire truck, which you all voted not to take out, to not borrow, but to pull out of general funds. We still have another payment of about $400,000 coming up for another fire truck. That'll be coming out of our general fund. We also had the first cost with the connector road that we paid that first amount to VDOT on it for $1 million, and that came out of the general fund. So There were several expenditures this year that during the budget process, we voted to not borrow those funds, to take them out of the general fund. And they have all just pretty much hit within the last month or so. That is some of the reason for why we were seeing such a large drop in our general fund balance at this time.
Yeah, we're on a stretch of expenses are higher than the revenues coming in at the moment, but we're still good financially, so,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Is there anyone here from the Commissioner's office? Seeing none, anybody to report from the Sheriff's office? Seeing none, we're gonna jockey a little bit and, let Ms. Darlene Lang, would you please come up with your report and get you out of here much earlier than you were scheduled? I'm sure you got plenty to do.
Ms. Collins
We're
had
point and click.
to leave, so give us a second here to make certain everything's up.
I have a slide presentation for you, but I can go ahead and start. I wanted to, I was called today to give an update on how we're doing with the radio system coming along. We started in 2017. It was supposed to be a 3-year process to revamp the countywide communication system. So we have 3 main towers. We have Big Walker, Sand Mountain, and Hamilton's Knob. And then we have secondary sites, and there's, we've got a couple in Rural Retreat, Fort Chiswell, Gardner Road, Speedwell Dump, the old Speedwell Dump site. The Circuit Court, there's a tower right over here, Carroll County. And then we have a control tower over at Pine Ridge, which is located here in Wytheville. So in 2017, basically our first, there it is, okay. I don't know how to work this. So in 2017, our first goal was to make sure that we could find everything. We needed to take inventory. At that point, everybody had their own frequency, their own channel, their own equipment, their own antennas, and everybody kind of took care of their own thing. This is a list of the school repeaters that were in the schools that we've identified. We had to go into the schools, find the antennas, find where the repeaters were in the schools, make sure they were on the right frequencies, and inventory that as well. And I'm going backwards, I apologize. So when we first started, like I said, everybody was responsible for their own equipment. I realized this the first month I was at the 911 center. We had a repeater get hit by lightning, it went down. It belonged on the sheriff's office channel. Well, I thought that the towers were part of the county system. It turns out they weren't. Everything is broken into agencies. And then I found out from talking to the other agencies that everybody's responsible for their own antennas, their own repeaters. Repeaters can get expensive. They run anywhere between $2,400 up to $5,000 to $10,000 a piece. We know what the budgets are for fire and rescue. So, I mean, it's expensive when one goes down. They also have to go up and check them every so often and do maintenance, check the batteries. The coax gets picked off. There's a lot of issues to it. So you'd have one person will just pick on a fire department. You have one guy at the fire department that works on his stuff. Well, if that guy leaves or he retires, he doesn't think to hand it off to somebody else, or it gets misguided or gets sent to somebody who knows a little bit about radios but not much. So nothing gets followed up on. Batteries go dead. Equipment gets old. And over the years, things have just gotten worse and worse. So our idea was to get all the equipment under one umbrella, under the county. So we set up agreements with all of the agencies, got everybody to sign to say that from 911 out to the tower, that includes antennas, repeaters, wiring, batteries, the whole nine, all that's to fall under the county, as the county communications. From that point, if anybody wanted a repeater in their station, anything like that, then that would be their agency responsibility. This way, we could make sure that our radio system was taken care of, it would be under one. Sorry, I have to read my notes, I can't see it. Ensure the, also, we wanted to take the burden off of the emergency responders. A lot of these guys are volunteers, most of them are volunteers. They don't have time to run up to the mountain on the weekend and check a repeater. It gets put off, it gets put off, it gets put off. So also, we wanted to make sure that we updated and replaced the outdated and broken equipment. Sorry, I keep hitting the back button. So we got everybody to sign the agreements, and we started trying to figure out the inventory of everything that we had. We got all that figured out. We tried to figure out the best way to revamp the system, to rebuild it, to make it better, to bring it up to today's standards. The town, in the process, was putting in their digital P25. So they were working on their system as well. So we checked with the big three meaning Sand, Hamilton's Knob, and Big Walker. We have to work with everybody who owns those towers. So we tried to find the owners of Hamilton's Knob, which we're still unable to, we know who they are, but we're unable to communicate to try to get our stuff back on the towers. Anyway, for Sand Mountain, so we have an MOU agreement with the town of Withville for installation and maintenance of an HVAC system for the building. We have to get their permission before we put that in. Our new repeaters are digital, and they require a climate control. If not, they'll burn out. And they're very expensive. So buying an HVAC system and putting it into that building is going to keep those repeaters running an extra 5 to 10 years. The HVAC systems that we purchased are very minimal in size. They're very minimal in cost. They only cost us, I think it was about $350 a piece, which is very cheap. But they run great. We've got one up at Hamilton's Knob. It's been running for a year now, and it's always 72 degrees in that building. We still have to program and install the new digital repeaters on Sand Mountain, which we had to make room for. So we had to take some old equipment out of the building, which we have to get permission to move, which we've done. We had to replace all the antennas, coax connectors, wiring for the entire system at Sand. We've done that. We're in the process now of installing Yagi antennas and additional repeaters for the sheriff's backup digital channel. It doesn't take microwaves, and we don't have to wait on the microwave process to get that channel installed. It can be installed within the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we've already started the process to get that done. So that's kind of where we are with the sheriff's digital backup channel. We do have we have installation of the new voter equipment for the sheriff's channel, which I just said. Replacement of the current voter equipment for analog paging that's being replaced at this time as well. That's the 6 to 8 weeks on top. They're gonna work, and we're working both of those at the same time. Everything in blue here that you see on there is already done or in the process of. We have replacement of the EM repeater. We've done that. We're using that for our digital testing for the rest of the system. We've had the FCC license checks and required applications review for all the licensing. Whenever you move a repeater from one space to another, or you change out the repeater from analog to digital, you have to get the FCC's approval. So all of those applications have to go in for every single site. And with the backup channel with the sheriff's office, all that had to be approved through the FCC as well. We replaced one, just to give you an example of how complicated it can get, we had an antenna replacement at Sand Mountain for the same frequency. It was the same antenna at the same wattage, and they picked it up in Tennessee. Cook County, I think, picked it up. They said they were getting radio interference. So we have to stop what we're doing. We have to try and find out how it's interfering, which channel it is, and we have to try and figure out how to filter all of that out. And that was just from one antenna change. So it can get, we got that rectified. They went ahead and filtered on their end, so we didn't have to change anything. But it's like that with every tower, every time you change something. So we have to kind of make sure that we know what we're doing before we do it. And that takes a little bit of time. Big Walker. We replaced all the antennas, coax wiring, and connectors. That requires somebody running up to the tower to pull all that down. Before we can reinstall, we have to have permission to change the same antenna off of a tower. Excuse me, because that's with the National Forest. If we replace it with the same antenna, we have to have permission. We put in an application in 2017. We did it again with Jason Kinzer was here. We've done it again when Curtis Crawford came on board. We still haven't heard anything back from them. We have plans with Mr. Baird to sit down and meet with them and find out why the applications are not getting either sent back to us or approved. We're still waiting on them. We've conducted pathway studies at this location. And the pathway studies take months, but they tell us if the frequencies are going to be able to be cleared from one tower to the other. And we've done this with all of the potential sites that we have. All of that was just completed last May. Everything looks good. There are a couple of sites that are not going to connect. We're not going to use those. We're going to reroute and have our connections in a different path. But it looks like we're going to have a very good redundancy system, and then we're going to have a good primary system. But I have those pathways available. If any of you want to see them, I can send them to you. Again, we're installing the sheriff's channel, repeated digital backup channel on Big Walker, and we're also replacing the equipment of the voted channel. Hamilton's knob is the same, except that we had a tower inspection, which we were required by lease to have in 2017. We did that. 3 parts of those towers failed, T3, T4, and T6. According to their lease agreement, they are supposed to replace those parts and keep that tower operational for us. We have tracked them down. We have had numerous conversations with them. And the conversation is always, we're looking at going ahead and giving you guys the tower. We're going to let you have it for cost. We need to get it out of our inventory. It's going to take another month. It's going to take another month. And we are still waiting. I made a call again last week. One of my daily calls to the rep out there, and I've gotten no response back from them yet.
I'm going to interrupt you at this point in time. Mr. Farthing and I have discussed this on several occasions, and at this time, we have no choice but to just send them a letter from the county attorney indicating that they are in breach of the agreement that they have with us. We sort of have a lease-free agreement up there, so in the process, but try to push the matter to go ahead and either get them to repair the site or to make other plans to possibly convey that site to us and move forward. Ms. Lang has been working closely with them or trying to get them to respond, but they've been delaying this process, and we're at the point now where we cannot delay the process anymore. We need to get the equipment, the antennas repaired and the equipment on there.
Are we still in budget of what we approved back in 17?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You've gone really deep in the weeds there with the nuts and bolts of it.
I just want everybody to understand.
Where are we with the program? Is it much better for fire and rescue than it was in 17? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much have we improved the service?
we have improved the service maybe 20%. And the reason for that is we are stuck with these two towers. We can't look at, I mean, I've gone as far as I can as far as getting somebody to come out and do the pathway studies and do the microwave studies and get cost analysis for microwave equipment, for repeater equipment. If Hamilton Knob backs out, we don't have that triangle that we need. If I can't get the National Forest to say, okay, you guys can go up and re-put your antennas up, we can't move because we don't have that triangle. This isn't my money, this is money that belongs to the citizens of this county. I don't want to go and spend and put all this equipment out and spend all this money and then get caught at the end because somebody wouldn't let us back on the tower. So I'm very cautious about going and buying equipment. I can buy it, I'm buying it where I can and placing it when I can. We just replaced a digital repeater for Barron Springs last weekend. They're getting great service. It's on a private little tower. We had permission to go in and do whatever we needed to do on the tower. And I just talked to Josh Stitt from Barron Springs last night. He says it's working excellent. So we've got the gumption to go forward. We just have those two blocks that's kind of holding us back.
Well, obviously Hamilton Knob is
Yes.
the answer for most of the eastern end of the county, but it's not the total answer.
No.
You gotta hit the ridges and valleys from two different angles to get good service.
Yes.
Is there any possibility of backup sites that we could have a plan B to get on some of these cell towers if this don't come to conclusion right away?
That's exactly, if we're not able to get anything resolved on the one, then it does cost more money, but is a cell tower up there, and another cell tower in the process of being constructed up there that we are going to work with, and we'll be working with immediately on the one being constructed as a backup plan to locate on those. That does provide us an option. It's just a more expensive option than what we prefer to go forward with.
Thank you.
Darlene, on the National Forest,
Yes, sir.
I'd suggest that you reach out to Major Klein with the Sheriff's Office. You know, in the past 6 months, there was 2 murders on National Forest property that the Sheriff's Office solved within 24 hours. And the National Forest law enforcement folks were most grateful that instead of the Sheriff's Office making them be the lead agency, that they took over and done all that. So I'm pretty sure he may have a contact that maybe
Okay.
spur this approval along. I think if the Sheriff's Office was kind enough to take 2 murders off their plates, that they could maybe help improve communications out there.
10-4. I will get with him this afternoon. And speaking about the sheriff's office, we did use a 1033 program that allowed for the sheriff's office as a law enforcement agency to go down and pick up containers from the military. And we've actually used that as a building up on Hamilton's Knob for a replacement. And it's worked absolutely wonderful. We've got another one set that we're gonna hopefully use over in Speedwell as a building there. And that alone saved us $10,000-15,000 off the budget, so, I mean, that's been a really big help. But the next process that we have, once we can get past these, we're looking at Speedwell dump. Right now, they have a small tower next to a tin building behind a grassy knoll, and it doesn't really get out. But we're looking at a new site up on the hill. It's at the dump, but it's up on the hill. It'll raise the pathway about 200 feet when it's all said and done.
You're referring to the closed landfill,
Yes,
correct?
the closed,
Yeah.
sorry, the closed
Former.
landfill.
Former property formerly known.
Former landfill, I apologize. But that looks like that's gonna be a great site. The pathway studies show excellent coverage. It's gonna cover down into Speedwell. It'll cover all the way out towards Grayson. I mean, they're saying it's gonna really do a lot of justice for Speedwell in that area.
Speaking of Grayson, and I'm not even sure if Grayson County is digital, but on this digital program, does it operate like analog to where it could help out neighboring jurisdictions if they were digital?
Do you mean to be able to connect in?
Yes, but say Grayson County has a fire department or a deputy that's on the Speedwell side of Grayson, and their radio system wouldn't work. Can they piggyback off our digital tower?
They can
or
if they can get into our system, yeah. And that's a standard thing that we've also been working with the agencies surrounding our county, that they have our frequencies in their radios, and we have theirs. Because that's hugely helpful. Also with the emergency services channel, that one's digital/analog. So if we have a large-scale event and somebody needs to come in, they'll have access to that frequency, either digital or analog, and be able to communicate with everybody within the county. We're also looking at moving Pine Ridge. It's a tiny little tower. There's a lot of weight on it, and the town a couple of years ago wanted to try and get a new tower. They asked that, when we sat down, they asked, can the county help out? It's gonna be about $250,000, because they have to bust through the rock. It would be cheaper for the county to move everything to the DSS building, which is gonna be, is one of the proposals that we're gonna put forward, to just move everything there, so we can come off of their tower. Then they don't have to rebuild a tower. We don't have to put out so much money to help build a tower that's not ours. And it puts us back on our own property, which alleviates the issues like we have at Hamilton's Knob or Big Walker.
And the pathways will work?
I'm sorry?
Will the pathways work?
Yes. Yes, they look really well. They look really good. Sorry, I'm not used to having this. All of the smaller sites that we have, Swakertown Road, there's a water tower in Carroll County. We've got Gardner Road. All of those sites are gonna get new repeaters and new coax and new antennas. We can go ahead and start those this year, but our focus has been trying to get something back off of Hamilton's Knob and Sand Mountain to get those big three up. We can essentially cover the entire county with those big three. The forks with the smaller antennas are only gonna allow us to get deeper into the valleys and into the homes, so that the radios can work in homes, especially for fire and law enforcement. But that's pretty much where we are. Do y'all have any questions or concerns?
I don't. I appreciate everything you are doing, though. I know it's taken a long time to get there, but hopefully we will, and it's much needed, much needed.
It's,
And the pathway studies that she talked about, that was a big factor. I mean, it's as Mr. Hale mentioned, you can't hit everything from the big three. You did pathway studies, and you figure out which water towers we have that can help with communications, which one, what other sites. That's why there's sites outside of the county that we've looked at.
yes.
What, something south of us may be able to feed back better into our area off of that. So, we're doing, those things have made a difference, at least identifying where we need to go. If we can get the legal issue taken care of with Hamilton's Knob, I don't think Big Walker's gonna be any issue. It's just a matter of getting to the right people. I agree with what you're saying,
And I'll
between the
get with Tom.
contacts, the national force, and everything we do together. It's probably just lost in the federal bureaucracy right there, that we'll push a couple local buttons here and see what we can get, and get Mr. Farthing working hard on the Hamilton's Knob, and if we get that straightened out, the big three is really what runs this whole program.
Thank you, Darlene. We know a lot more than we did a while ago.
I would be glad to talk about it all day long, just.
Thank you, Darlene.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Before you move forward, since we're already in new business, Ms. Bryant is here from the Mount Rogers Community Service for the annual report. And she can go over with you all the hundreds of pages of that report that's in your package, if you would so like. And I did give you a handout that she has provided.
I would like a professional executive summary.
I'll try to help with that. As Steve said, I'm Sandy Bryant, Executive Director at Mount Rogers. Thank you for the opportunity to meet today. And I also want to thank you for Wythe County's continuing support and for this specific opportunity to highlight our annual performance contract. I did give you a cover letter and a 2-page summary of the performance contract and then 2 pages of budget summary. Just briefly, Mount Rogers is here to improve the quality of life for individuals with mental, physical, and substance use intervention needs. We are divided up into 5 different divisions. One is administration, one is adult behavioral health services, which includes substance use, IDS services for the developmental delay, youth family services, and then our employment services, IDCs, our Industrial Developmental Center. We provide mental health services, intellectual disability services, substance use disorder services, emergency services, early intervention services, prevention and wellness services. For every dollar of direct local funding, we are generating nearly $100 of additional funding through Medicaid insurance. While we serve 6 localities, 25% of our staff are from Wythe County. And over 20% of our services are provided to citizens of Wythe County. A year ago, we set a goal over the next 5 years to provide at least 5% of your citizens with some form of service at Mount Rogers. Our baseline was 3.5%, which was a year ago, and we're now up to 3.8%, and hope over the next 5 years that we're at 5%. So we are working very hard in that area to serve. I do want to give you some good news that right now, of all the 40 CSBs, we're the highest as far as penetration per capita for children's services. So we're number 1 of 40 CSBs. We're providing a lot of children's services in Wythe County. To look to your first handout with the contract summary, we are an organization with a $68 million budget. 51.5 almost million is overseen by this performance contract with the Department of Behavioral Health. The other dollars are our IDC production employment services, which are not under the performance contract. And we are the regional fiscal agent for a few $1 million that oversees over 6 CSBs. So that's not counted. You can see the breakout here of the dollars that the performance contract provides. And again, just to reiterate that the majority of our budget is Medicaid and insurance dependent. Over the last year, we've increased psychiatric capacity specifically to Wythe County. Your citizens were having difficulty getting in for psychiatric services, so we have increased those services. Also, of our citizens in Wythe, only 30% of them that were coming in had a primary care physician. So we have now added a primary care nurse practitioner in our Wythe clinic, so that when anyone walks through the door, one of the first things we're asking them is, have you seen a primary care physician in the last year? Are you having any physical symptoms? If they don't have a primary care, we are immediately getting them to our primary care provider, who is assessing them for their physical, because as you know, the population we serve dies 25 years earlier than the regular population because they tend to not have access to primary care. So we are very happy to say we're now in the 80% of individuals have seen a primary care in the last year. So we're really happy about that statistic. So we're keeping citizens healthier, and our primary goal is to get them connected to a primary care physician. And we continue to follow them until we have successfully warm-handed over to another primary care. The other major project we have completed this year and are continuing on is 30% of the babies born in Wythe County Hospital are substance abuse exposed. So we wrote a grant. There is 10 Project Link programs in the state of Virginia, but we didn't have one here in this area. So we wrote a grant, and we are now the 11th community to have a Project Link program that provides services not only to the baby, but also to the mother and to the father. So we're providing father groups, we're providing intensive services to the mother, and we are providing services and assessments with the babies. We're doing it in their homes, in the community, and in the clinic, but home visiting is a critical aspect of being able to assist with that. So we're working with the primary care, the hospitals, DSS, in order to identify these mothers and pregnant women. We're also working with the GYN offices to connect with them. Our major projects for this fiscal year is that we are currently assisting in developing a drug court in Wythe, does not have one. And so we're in the middle of planning that drug court and writing grants for that. We also just received a grant to start MAT services in our Wythe clinic, which is Medicaid-assisted treatment for individuals that are opioid dependent. So we will be providing that service and getting that started in the next few months. Our biggest project is that we have bought the old health department right there near the hospital. We have bought that to create a crisis care center. We currently have one in Smith that we just got started. We're doing 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we'll be moving to 12 hours, 7 days a week, December 1st. And what Smith is finding is this drop-off center is not only the hospitals reporting decreased psychiatric individuals coming into their emergency rooms, the police are reporting less TDOs and ECOs, and we're having less hospitalizations in that Smith County. We'd like to repeat that in Wythe County. It'll take pressure off your police officers and sheriff's offices, and it will take pressure off the emergency room who's trying to screen these individuals, but it's not the best place to take care of people in an emotional crisis. Moving on to the last page, thing I'd like to point out to you, one of the biggest challenges that I walked into 19 months ago when I got here was the state threatening to take money away from us because we were not at 10% local funds. And so we quickly called a meeting with all of the superintendents. Steve was one who came, and we looked at the categories, and if you see in the red down at the bottom, we were not taking advantage of all the categories that could equal up to that 10%. And so we measured every inch of the schools that were where we were providing day treatment and that type of thing, and we successfully got up to 10% mid-year 2019, and we're very, very proud of how we worked together, the localities in Mount Rogers, to get there where it needed to be so that we're not being threatened as far as getting money taken away. So Mount Rogers is considered to be a multi-jurisdictional entity. Each of the counties and in the city served by the board is requested to review and approve our performance contract. Therefore, I'm here to respectfully request your consideration and approval of the performance contract, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend a motion to approve the performance contract with the Mount Rogers Community Services Board.
So
Make
moved.
it. Second.
You make the motion, he recommended. He can't make a motion.
Well,
Charlie did?
Yeah.
All right, didn't hear Charlie,
it's,
excuse me.
we talked at the same time. I think Charlie made the motion and I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Have a motion and a second to adopt the recommendation for the Mount Rogers Community Services performance contract. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I guess this needs a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 And the vice chair votes aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, if you'll flip back to the original, we got committee reports. Have anything from Water Committee?
Yeah, the Water Committee met on October 15, 2019, and makes the following recommendations. The Water Committee recommends transferring $352,000 from the Water Reserve Fund 510-490179 to the Water Fund number 50003-390179. This transfer is to provide funds for the county's portion of the New River Regional Water Authority debt service.
Coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any discussion? Is this the way it's normally done?
No,
annually?
sir, this is the first year that this has happened. There have been some reserve funds set back, and as we have discussed in the past, our water revenues are not covering all of our expenditures throughout the year. And before we start transferring from the general fund to cover some of the water funded costs, we are, for this year at least, making a transfer out of some reserve funds that are set aside to help cover those expenses.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ball,
Aye.
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 vice chair votes aye. You got anything else from
That
Water
was-
Committee?
That was all we had, unless something's come up that I don't know about.
Budget Committee have anything?
Budget Committee met on October 17th and recommends the following. First item is to accept the FY19 Local Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $13,017, which requires a cost share of $13,017, total award of $26,034.
Come committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion?
Exactly what's this for?
This is an annual grant that we get, and it helps with the salaries and payments of activities of our emergency services coordinator.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Horny,
Aye.
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 and vice chair votes aye.
Next item is to draft an ordinance and set a public hearing for consideration of granting tax exemption status for the Spiller Annex property.
Mr. Chairman, y'all just have conveyed that to the Worth County Historical Society, and just like you have done with the Millwall Theater Group recently, this group has requested that you all consider establishing them as tax exempt on their real estate.
All right, can we set a public hearing, or do you need to?
I think I would just authorize the attorney draft and everything and get back to you, and then set the public hearing following the review of the ordinance.
All right. Do you need an action motion
I
for
would go
that?
ahead and just take action on that for the county attorney to do that.
Your motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, or any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ball,
Aye.
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 Vice Chair votes aye.
Next item is to amend and appropriate $500 to 7109-316101. These funds were donated by National Bank to sponsor the broadcasting of the Recreation League Super Bowl.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion? Would you like to report on the flyover there and make it part of the public record?
Yeah, I gave our Parks and Recreation Department lots of credit in the second quarter of the varsity Super Bowl game at Fort Chiswell High School from the southeast. A large military jet, it's one of those that looks like it's barely flying fast enough to keep itself afloat, came up and turned and went right over the end zone. The officials stopped the game so the kids could turn and watch that, and I just quickly let everyone around me know that was sponsored by Wood County Parks and Recreation. So,
Good job.
but I told them, great job, they went above and beyond this year. So,
It'll be hard to top that next year.
yes, it will be. Someone asked for the parachute to come out of it next year. So,
Any other discussion?
we worked several years on getting individuals to broadcast this game, and it surprised me. I've heard several comments from people that actually did listen to the game, that did make it to the game. So I appreciate our staff working and finding sponsorship for this, and for 95.3 for covering our Super Bowl game.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Warning,
Aye.
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 and Vice Chair votes aye.
Fourth and last item is to amend and appropriate and authorize disbursement of $13,213 to the Barron Springs Fire Department. This is a portion of the funds received from the sale of the old Barron Springs Fire Department building and community center property.
Coming from committee, doesn't need a second. Is there any discussion?
Would you care to explain the breakdown?
Yeah, basically what this is, we sold the entire property over there for roughly $25,000. The breakdown is in the board package there. The old fire department building roughly constituted 54% of the total value of that property. So therefore, this represents the same percentage of the sale cost, and this amount would go to the Barron Springs Fire Department.
Okay, and then the rest of that money is gonna go to the procurement of the land.
It goes into the reserve to set back to hold for the purchase of the land.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ball,
Aye.
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 Vice Chair votes aye. Are you done spending all that money now, Charlie?
Yes.
Thank you. County Administrator's report.
First item is the fall 2019 VDOT transportation meetings. If anyone can attend, our meeting is Thursday, November 7th. This starts at 4 o'clock at the Bristol District. One of the primary things is just making certain that our next priority items are at least included in the V-Trans plans for funding. Obviously, some of our priorities continue to be interstate exit improvements, but also down to some long-term road improvements. We've talked a long time about a 4-lane going south on 52. We have some safety area improvement things that come up. So if you can make it to this meeting, just to get to know some of the VDOT personnel and look at the plans and the roads that are out there, it's beneficial. So informational purposes only, just letting you all know about that meeting.
What was the date again?
Thursday, November 7th. And it'll be at Abington at the Higher Ed Center.
Well, I truly believe that FaceTime with these district officials pay off. They were great help in us getting a $12.5 million Smart Fund grant. Had we been strangers to those people, I don't think it would ever happen. We've had their support in moving our 6-year plan ahead at a much better pace, partially due to funding, but a whole lot due to their recognition that the county was trying to do their part in develop a secondary system. Thank you, Stephen.
Next item, school board's required to submit to the governing body their annual report of school expenditures. This is just a one-page report. I have just put it on here so that you all have the information. If there's any questions or any follow-up y'all would like to have on this, I can certainly schedule the superintendent to come in and talk to you about it. But just meeting the code requirements of them providing us the information.
Do they indicate in that report that they're on schedule to stay within budget with the renovations?
No, this is just more on their
Operation?
operations, yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
The next item is a conflict of interest policy. Our auditors have been in here for the last week conducting our audit. Prior to that, they sent us information that in doing federal work this year and meeting with changes in federal requirements, they recommended that all counties and localities, in order to keep from having negative comments on their audit, adopt conflict of interest policies and a federal awards management policy, which comes next. This basically is no different than anything else we're doing with conflict of interest. It's basically just that the standard is to affirm that the standard of conduct established to ensure board members and employees avoid potential and actual conflicts of interest, as well as the perception of conflicts of interest. And I recommend that we adopt this. It does require that we send provide a copy of this policy to all employees and everyone to initial that they have received this policy, and then maintain those standards of conduct.
It would seem germane to me that the state code would be mentioned in that.
It does not specifically reference all the things in the state code here. Mr. Vault asked that during our committee meeting when we talked about this. It doesn't really vary anything per se from the state code. It's just a policy that they recommend you adopt to make sure you have in place. And obviously, state code has similar conflict of interest requirements and regulations. This helps us, especially with all of our employees, to make certain there's a documented policy that they are self-signing, that they are in receipt of this policy.
I agree with the employee part. The part that I have a problem with is the board member part. Like Mr. Hale said, we're bound by state code. We're required to attend conflict of interest training that Martha keeps reminding us that we have to have done by the end of the year. As board members, as elected officials, our conflict of interest Code of Virginia includes criminal charges and removal from office. So I don't think we need an internal policy. I think board members follow the Code of Virginia, and employees, I don't have a problem with that. It's reading through this, comparing it to the Code of Virginia, there's a couple of sections that, to me, that muddies the water. And to keep everybody, all the board members on the same page, I think we just follow the Code of Virginia. There's a reason they call that the Bible of the court system in the Commonwealth, so that's my opinion.
Well, let's table that till the chairman's here and take it up at the next meeting. There's no rush on this, is there?
And I will go back to the auditor with that comment. They did indicate that this needs to be adopted before they finalize their audit for us.
Well, anything that we agree on needs to be studied because it's a pretty good idea that it needs fixed.
And
If me and Joe agree, there's gotta be some meat to it.
I'll take those concerns back to the auditor and see if, you know, the recommendation revising to remove the board members' requirements from that.
I'd also requested you speak to Dr. Jeffries, because I had a conversation with him. Apparently this came up. I guess it's coming up in everybody's audit.
Yeah.
And I think the school board had some concerns as well.
And if you could email me some of those concerns you've got of where it muddies the water, and I'll share those with him as well to indicate what are some of our concerns.
Well, I mean, ultimately,
Yeah.
Code of Virginia overrides
Yes. it
with
does.
county policy. So, you know, that's my problem. It's more government that's not needed.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chairman, the next item of business is a similar item that's coming from, this is just a federal awards management policy. And it's basically just making certain there is a policy for federal awards, which we don't have a tremendous amount of federal project. I mean, obviously rural development things, but most of those aren't grant, most of those are loans. But on grants, the sheriff's office does have some on grants that come in the process. We may receive some through emergency services as well, Department of Homeland Security. But this is a awards administration. I have reviewed this with Mr. Stone. I've reviewed this with Grant, Mr. Bruce Grant from our office. We have revised the guidelines. They had federal recommendations up to small purchase procedures up to $250,000, which far outstrips any of ours. So these are all been dialed back down to with county's procurement policies and procedures, and would recommend adoption of this Federal Awards Administration policy for with county.
Okay.
I would ask for just one amendment, and that is in the very second sentence of it. It says, if a grant is federal, the department shall immediately notify the finance director for inclusion in with county's single audit. I would just recommend that we change that to if grant is federal or state grant with federal funds. And that way it covers all of those, because we do have some state grants that come through but have federal funds that have to meet the same audit requirements.
Yeah, the Davis-Bacon funding and those kind of things really become a burden. I agree with you. Anybody make a motion to recommendation?
I'll make that motion and to also include the amendment in the second sentence. Is that correct?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hear none, Mr. Horny.
Aye.
Aye.
The vice chair votes aye. Next.
Next item is a budget amendment request that came up at the end of last week. As you all know, we have built the Raper Ridge water tank. We had a rural development bond issuance for that. The debt service for that has been paid by the New River Regional Water Authority, but because the rural development bond is through us, they will be taking the money out of our account, and we will be getting reimbursed from New River Regional Water Authority. The payments will start immediately, and request a revenue and expense budget amendment of $34,938 to cover for those payments going out and for the revenue coming back in. So it's zero net neutral difference to the county. Just putting it within our budget because it's not in there to start those payments going out. So just
County actually gonna own the tank.
Yes, we own the property there already, and we own the tank. They are paying for the debt service on the tank.
Okay.
We just need a motion to amend and appropriate the revenue and expenses as shown.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or clarification? Hear none, Mr. Vaught?
Aye.
Excuse me.
Aye.
Aye.
And Vice Chair votes aye.
The last item is for informational purposes at this time. At the last Wednesday's meeting, the With Bland JPSA voted to change their operation hours. They were open from 7 to 11 on Saturdays. The Saturday hours did not provide a large amount of trash coming in on Saturdays. However, one of the concerns brought up was Saturdays did provide citizens an opportunity to bring items in that, for those that may be working from 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday, could come in on the weekends. They presented information to the authority that showed the limited number of trips that were coming in on Saturdays. And they made a recommendation to stay open until 6 o'clock on Fridays. That does provide a little bit of after-work hours for some individuals to bring items in on Friday. But it also, the largest customer of theirs is With County, and it does provide additional time for our trash and recycling center contractor to bring boxes in on Friday to make certain that our centers are open over the weekend. I've expressed that my concern has been making certain that this has no negative impact on our trash and recycling centers. So they will make this change, look at it for a few months, see if it's created any issues or problems, and if so, look at it again first next year and revise the schedule as needed.
Being informational, it doesn't need a action.
Doesn't need any action. No, sir.
Or you're almost done?
I am finished, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question. So V&M is on board with this schedule change?
Mr. Bowers is talking with them about it, letting them know about it. They were not bringing in much trash at all on Saturdays. They were trying to get everything emptied. And on Saturdays, they pretty much they could only bring in between 7 and 11 a.m. And most of the time, I mean, about 10:30 or so, the gate was getting shut to do it. So they do not see it as having any impact, and the additional hours on Friday will allow them to pull more sites. Because when they shut down at 3:30, they're either closing the gate at 2:30 or 3, to then clean everything off the floor. So this will give them another, at least 3 operational hours to bring stuff in.
I believe this is a good time to do the resolution that lifts the fire ban this evening.
Yep, with the rain falling outside, you are correct.
Would you read the thing and?
Yeah, in front of all of you all is a resolution. Mr. Crawford is not here with us this morning, but we did talk about this at the Fire and Rescue Committee meeting last night. Basically, I'll read the resolution. Whereas on September 24th, 2019, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors declared a local emergency for the County of Wythe in accordance with 44-14621, direct declaration of local emergency of the Code of Virginia, in consultation with the local fire chiefs, local emergency service coordinator, and Wythe County Sheriff's Department. And whereas Wythe County declared a partial burn ban due to high fire load and drought conditions. And whereas Wythe County has had in excess of 3 inches of rain since the emergency was declared, and is forecasted consistent precipitation in the upcoming weeks. And whereas the county is aware of the still potential for wildfire and will continue to disseminate information to the citizens of Wythe County to educate on safe burning practices and monitor the weather and drought conditions. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors assembled this 22nd day of October 2019 hereby declares by the way of resolution confirmation of the declaration by the Director of Emergency Management of the recension of the local emergency for Wythe County established September 24th, 2019, and authorizes the county administrator to file with the Governor of Virginia a notification that the County of Wythe is no longer under a state of local emergency.
I will make that motion. That we
Second.
approve that.
Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2019-30. Is there any further discussion? Hear none. Mr. Horning.
Aye.
Aye.
And Vice Chair votes aye. Okay, we'll get into supervisors' reports. Black Lake District 1,
I think we have a county attorney report.
I don't have anything to report. I'm in good shape. I'll speak up.
oh,
I
okay.
just wanted to make sure you didn't feel left out, Scott.
I appreciate that.
I've got some road concerns, I'll follow up or forward them to Stephen. I've just got them as of late. And, I don't know that, the rain we're hearing on the roof's gonna help these washboard complaints I've got, but I'll send you a list. That's all I have.
Okay, Westwood,
The only thing I have, there has been some accusations that board members have profited off the Apex. If somebody has that information, I'd like to know it.
yeah, that is a good time, and to bring it forward, if there is such information that any board member is profited or is using the Apex to their advantage, we'd encourage them to bring it to the board, and we'll take appropriate action. East Whipple,
I have nothing at this time.
I had one call this last week. Stephen, there's some delay on the project going into Rouse Ridge. They have heard that there's now a right-of-way problem again. What do you know?
Where we stand with that, in reviewing, remember the VDOT was requiring a easement, there was an agreement with East Tennessee Natural Gas for the lines through there that they had to have an agreement, and I don't know the exact terminology, but basically that their easement was subservient to the other easement in the process. And that information, those agreements were between East Tennessee Natural Gas and VDOT themselves, not involved in the county. The language has gone back and forth on that as to who's absolving who of what responsibility. And Richmond VDOT, Office of the Attorney General's office, has been working that through with East Tennessee Natural Gas. In the process of reviewing all those closely, they asked for the county for certification that we did have a right-of-way through there. The county attorney drafted the letter to them, provided them copies of the plats again, the subdivision ordinance that required the 50-foot public right-of-way to go through there. That information has all gone to VDOT and has gone to the Office of the Attorney General in review. The last information I had from VDOT as of Friday of last week is that all the questions seem to have been resolved, and they were just waiting for the paperwork coming back from the Office of Attorney General to indicate that all the right-of-way issues were taken care of. And that's the latest information that I have.
Would you please email that to me short so the chain can start informing everybody? And also,
I think Friday I spoke with her.
would you please contact Andy and let's get a tandem load of gravel in there and fill those holes. We couldn't get a fire truck or an ambulance in there right now. And if people were being restricted to the right of way, you couldn't use that trail. It's trail, not a road. It's way out of the right of way, but people keep driving further out in the field to get away from those chug holes. And a load of crusher run in the right place up there, they're better off with a bad gravel road than what they have now. Because I understand from you that they're going to tear up all that bad pavement, or what little of that bad pavement's there, and use it, hopefully.
That's the last information I had. They will come in and mill that part off and use that just for some of the base right there to start off with.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had. That's my district.
Guy up on call this week, the bridge over Cripple Creek, got a hump on him, they settling home.
On 94?
Yeah. The court should have gone, court should have said. That's all right.
Speedle District?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. What we have under new business is consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve consent calendar.
Have a motion to approve the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, or any discussion, or any items anyone wants to discuss? Hearing none, all in favor, Mr. Ball?
Aye.
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 Vice Chair votes aye. We got the Mount Rogers out of the way, we got the radio, thank you. Update, I guess we're ready to go into closed session under Virginia Section 2.2-3711A5 to discuss prospective industry, and Section 2.2-3711A1 to discuss personnel matters.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes. Do you need a I'll make a motion, we come out of closed session.
Right.
Second.
Motion and a second to come out of closed session. You read the necessary.
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
Roll call vote. Mr. Horny
Aye.
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 and the vice chair votes aye. We have someone make a motion about the personnel.
I'll make a motion that we amend and appropriate $15,000 to add a full-time position to, would that be the water department or the split between the
It'd
water
be
department?
split between the county and the water department, and then we'll use the part-time funds previously allocated to the water department as a match towards that.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Vaught
Aye.
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 and vice chair votes aye. The other thing Charlie brought, I want to share with you, the proposed new bowling alley. That's on the lot beside Lowe's, and
Yes.
if any of y'all care to look at it, there's a floor plan, and we wish them well. I think that's a good thing for Wytheville and for the county.
RGM plans to start construction on the building in December, mid-December.
Heard about that for a few years, I didn't know what happened. It's exciting.
Do we have any further business?
No, sir, I do not have further business. I will remind everyone our next meeting is moved to Wednesday night, November 13th, due to the VACO conference. So our next meeting will be on Wednesday, November 13th.
We'll be having a Board of Supervisors team.
Martha, you guys all set to go to? Thank you. You do a good job. Okay, hearing no other business before the board, we are adjourned.